Good morning, everyone. Welcome along to Sunrise Daily today. I'm Chamberlain. So,
well, it's a beautiful Tuesday morning. I'm Kayode Okikelu.
Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Ayo Makinde. Well, the only thing that would stand out to me this morning would be the call by health professionals about COVID-19. It's something we talked about yesterday morning, no doubt. It's just something that needs to be re-echoed. There has to be lives before there can be livelihood. But then, those concerns are still right there in our faces. What are the things that people need to know? Our communication needs to be very strong out there. That communication needs to be even more popular out there. Back in time, we would have what they call public service announcements all over the place. And again, we still continue to call on the National Orientation Agency, for God's sake. People just need to know what they need to do. It's not enough for us to put the information out there for people to be gleaning. Chamberlain said yesterday when we mentioned this fact that, once upon a time there was Twitter that people could really, approach. But now there isn't such. Consequently, a lot more work on the part of the authorities to ensure that people get the information that they need to get. It would seem like many are going about like nothing is, we're back to our lives. But with this threat of the third wave, we're not. 1.1% to 6.6% increase. That's what Lagos State government quoted yesterday. Oyo State is having, that as well. And who knows where else these things are going to happen. These concerns are real, they're genuine, and it's something we need to give attention.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's clear, really. But whether or not people are on the same page with the government, health professionals, and this is another thing. Not even just people. Well, people, and I'm talking the leaders themselves. I've seen meetings in recent times where, social distancing and other non-pharmaceutical measures have been jettisoned. So you wonder if it's like that at the very top, how about the sub-levels and the rest? So that's a huge concern for me. But that's one pandemic we're dealing with. Another pandemic that stands out for me, and I'm sure for a lot of Nigerians, is a spate of kidnapping. Yesterday news broke that the Emir of Kajuru had been released eventually. 85-year-old Emir was released, but his family members are still in captivity, and the bandits are said to be demanding 200 million naira ransom. 200 million naira. That's huge. I don't forget the man that was abducted in Zamfara as well. They were demanding 5 million naira ransom. And for me, this is also another pandemic we need to sort out ASAP. For this one, you need the kind of vaccine you need for this kind of pandemic clearly is either just like COVID-19, there's the pharmaceutical interventions and non-pharmaceutical interventions, right? They say that for security as well, there's the kinetic and non-kinetic, sort of like what we have with COVID-19. And the question is, how well are we engaging that? We had a robust conversation about that yesterday, but it's worrisome that we keep seeing this happen time and time again with reckless abandon. So for me, that also stands out.
Yeah, so I guess some of the dailies are already reflecting some of those issues that you've highlighted, but it's an unfortunate scenario which our Nigerian Tribune reflects this morning. So we might as well just delve into that and take a look at the front page of the Tribune this morning. And INEC posts, well, that is the theme of their big story today. Opposition mounts as Onochie supporters infiltrate Senate. So that is going on. And don't forget, they're going to proceed on their research pretty soon. So imagine that they're trying to get this done before that happens. Okay, so I guess before we come to that part, we'll switch to this first. Daily Trust then. Press bills. No institution is above law. Don't strangulate us. Bond will not take it. NGE. So that's what you see right there on the front page, and so there's already a front page comment on the front page here today, which I reckon you might see in some of the other dailies. No to anti-media bills. That's what they continue with here today, and that's Daily Trust this morning.
Well, let's take a look at leadership next. Leadership for you has a big one. Our stand. Kill the Press Council bill. I mean, there's no need to really flip into the pages first. You can read most of it on the front page right there. Of course, it continues on page 3 of the Leadership newspaper this morning. But clearly, second day running, you've seen the dailies, come up with their stance and really put it out there so Nigerians can know what this is about, what this might do. Of course, this will form a major part of our conversation this morning as well. But just to give you what's on the front page of the dailies this morning, and right on top of that stand, you see school parents sell properties to raise ransom for abducted Islamia pupils. Just in case you've forgotten, this is not normal. We still have students in captivity. As bandits reduce ransom to 30 million naira, Emir of Kajuru regains freedom, 14 others remain in captivity. Kidnappers demand 200 million naira ransom for Emir's household. So that's, another pandemic that I referenced earlier on. This one is taking lives. It's keeping people in captivity for months, weeks. And imagine the psychological effect that follows. People lose their property just to pay ransom, even though there's usually less to talk about ransom after those releases are made. But it's a huge one, and the leadership tries to cover it. Let's leave it there. The Leadership newspaper.
Well, what's also interesting as far as that one is concerned for me is we don't even seem to know. You talked about the current impact. How about the future impact? The one that we cannot calculate in naira and kobo, the one that may not be written. The psychological impact, the trauma, long-lasting trauma, especially on the children. If we have the Vanguard newspaper this morning, let's take a look at it. It's talking about the same issue of abduction. 2,371 people abducted in the first half of 2021. Talking about the same thing. It's according to a report. Find out which report it is on page 7 of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. FG more interested in going after secessionists than bandits. That's according to Shehu Sani. Bandits release Emir of Kajuru, other family members still in captivity. Gombe deploys vigilante to schools, carries out vulnerability assessment. That story, as I said, is on page 7 of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. Right above the nameplate, FG generates 1 trillion naira from privatization, lists more entities. Find the story on page 19. And now another one there. I'll never be part of any bill to gag Nigerian press, says Bajabiamila. Interesting. One way the Daily Trust newspaper puts it, and this is how the Vanguard newspaper puts it. The details are on the inside pages. Southwest leaders cry foul as Mieti Allah alleges governors hiding Igboho. The story is on page 5. Jega asks Buhari to withdraw Onoche's nomination as INEC commissioner. Find that story also on page 7 of the paper this morning. And so many other stories you'll find on the front page. Quick one, Mr. and Mrs. after some time. Mrs. says, yes, after some time.
Just 24 hours.
Yeah, it's long enough, guys.
I hope Mr. and Mrs. I hope they
Shall
invite
we
you to their anniversary. To their wedding anniversary.
Yeah.
So Mrs. says, you're sorry? I've heard that 1,000,000 times before. And Mr. says, please, kindly add this one to it.
That's 1,000,001.
That's the Vanguard newspaper this morning. Good morning, Mawkwe.
Morning, gentlemen. Let's take a look at what other dailies are saying this morning. The Guardian has this to say: Nigerians borrow to feed as food prices soar amidst stagnated income. If you notice, the Guardian has been focusing heavily on the economy for many of its editions, and this particular story today is no different. Nigerians borrow to feed as food prices soar amid stagnated income. So while food prices are running away, it would seem the salaries have largely remained the same. And inflation is going away with the wind. Look at this. UN, as United Nations, almost 1 in 3 globally go hungry during pandemic. We earn as low as 900 naira daily, say factory workers. So that is there. You also see this 10 feared killed, houses razed in fresh Kaduna attack. Sanwo-Olu orders arrest of 3 traffic robbers. That's been gaining ground in Lagos, people robbing others in traffic. Onochie's appointment as INEC Commissioner bad for democracy, says Wike. That's also on the front page of The Guardian. Oyo begins contract tracing of index Delta variants, records 2 deaths. So this is serious. You might want to take a look at the story on the front page of The Guardian, that someone has died from this new aggressive strain of COVID-19, and that we need to take heed. Look at this. The editorial is right on the front page. Who is afraid of free press? That's the question mark and the title of the editorial of The Guardian, right on the front page, continuing inside the paper. Let's leave it there for the paper.
Okay, the Nigerian Tribune now, we can see that now. INEC posts, opposition mounts as Onoche supporters infiltrate Senate. We will block her nomination, PDP. Buhari copied Jonathan, APC. Senate must prove it is not rubber stamp, Pandev. How they hate that name, don't they? But, well, Pandev seems to have thrown the back in the court of the Senate now. So I guess all eyes will be on that in the next few days. And then they also have their own front page comments. NAS, you can't criminalize journalism. So that's what the editorial is about. You may want to see that as well. So this is again the unfortunate scenario which we were talking about in Oyo State. COVID-19, 2 die of dreaded Delta variant in Oyo, already taking its toll. And then you see the rider, 1 isolated as contact tracing begins. Monitor foreign travelers, Sanwo-Olu tells immigration. And then that's a picture you see right there on the front page. He ran out of those traffic robbers as the governor's convoy did catch them, apprehending them. So you can see right there that, yeah, some of the aides as well, arresting a gang of suspected criminals, harassing motorists around Ojora. That's inbound Alausa Ikeja on Monday. The paper so captions that one there. So there you go. That is a Tribune this morning.
Well, let's take a look at Blueprint. Check the print on the Blueprint. Constitution review. Southwest governors demand 6 regions, 6 states, or rather 6 regions, states as federating units. Seek local government autonomy, resource control. Ekore Madu advocates single-term rotational presidency. So that's the focus of Blueprint, or at least one of the Blueprint's focus this morning. I mean, because I mean that's what it's right there, right? Is it? Well, it's understandable.
It's a bit confusing because at some point many thought, wait a minute. So what exactly is their position about judiciary and LG autonomy? And now they seek LG autonomy or financial autonomy. What kind of autonomy? But I guess the devil is in the detail.
The rotational presidency angle, though, is not new. I think I remember the government of President Jonathan also advocating the same thing. 1 term, 6 years, and that will be it.
It didn't pass.
Well, of course, clearly it didn't pass. So. Otherwise, that's what we'll be running now, isn't it?
But that LG, I think that's an interesting one, really. You know, just to see, because I think some of the issue they had was the clause in that executive order wherein they said that the AGF had powers or the accountant general to dip into the accounts of state and would take funds and pay certain people. They thought, can't do that in this kind of democracy. These units, federating units have got to be strong. We don't oppose it, they say, but just that particular clause. But now that they say they're seeking LG autonomy, it'll be interesting to see.
It will be, definitely. Right under that, you see the front page comment, halts the bill to amend the Press Act, MBC. That one is also a front page comment that continues on the inside pages on page 10 of the Blueprint newspaper this morning. Of course, you see that report, over 2,000 people kidnapped. 10 billion naira ransom demanded in first half of 2021. I mean, if this is not an industry, if this is not a money-making industry, then what is? Except that this one is not, of course, remitting into the Federation account on one hand, not paying taxes, and lives are being lost. Homes are being, dreams are being shattered as a result of this one. So it's not the kind of industry we definitely want.
They drew attention saying, look, did we notice a pattern? If they kidnap a certain group of people, if they release a group, another group is kidnapped. And it just seems to, be endless.
It's a cycle.
So, crazy stuff.
There's something going on, some might say. See, pensioners cry out over Pencom's failure to pay arrears. The fate of pensioners sometimes in this country.
Well, those funds were still there before until the government said, well, look, why would we let the funds lie there? Let's utilize the funds and then we can pay back the funds. Remember the argument before the former head of Pencom was relieved that the new person came through, and now, how much do we even have left in that Pencom at the moment? So, and people who even went to claim their pensions said, contrary to what they had been told, when you get there, you can't access the certain percentage that they said you could. And who do you then get to?
That's in the law. You get a certain percentage if...
Yeah.
Well, they say it's on paper.
Until you try to access it, actually.
Let us know your experience with, pension, Pencom, and other stakeholders in this, because it's quite important. There's some other stories. Let me just take this one. I admitted killing Super TV CEO under pressure, Chidima. So that's another twist to this story, and it's quite interesting seeing the series of interviews that she has granted, or that she has been, I don't know how to coin that really, but that we've seen her in, and you wonder what's different about this case, right? That's Blueprint for you.
Well, take a look at the Nigerian News Direct today, and it's definitely also interested in all of the things that are going on all over the place. Nigerian News Direct leads with mass surveillance. NAS allegedly approves 4.87 billion naira for NIA. The story is on page 3. To monitor, listen to the writers, to monitor, track calls, WhatsApp messages. That's the number one. SERAP to challenge blatant violations of Nigerians' rights. Ubane Akingbolu say approval unbelievable, illegal. National Assembly allegedly approves 4.8 billion naira for NIA. Find the details on the inside pages, because I'm wondering if it can track and monitor WhatsApp messages that's supposed to be end-to-end encryption. Well, I guess...
want to monitor calls, that's on you, or messages, that's on you, they do it. It's been done in this country, so it's not a new thing. So
anyway, by the way, the information blackout is also right there on the front page of the Nigerian News Direct today. And above the nameplate, you have the editorial press censorship. Catastrophe looms in returning Nigeria to reckless military days. That's right there on the inside pages of the paper this morning. That's the Nigerian News Direct.
And if you take a look at New Telegraph this morning, you see this one. It's about politics. 2023, youths begin search for Buhari's successor. Mall NSAR strategy, that's hashtag NSAR strategy, alignment with parties, rules out PDP, APC platforms. Over 67% of youths registered first week of CVR exercise. That's according to Yaga Africa. So it does mean that they're not going to be on the sidelines this time around. They're very interested in what is happening politically. Page 3 will give you details. Look at this one. Media bill, I won't support move to gag press. That's what Bajabia Mila says. Assures toxic provisions will be removed. We won't allow NAS to regulate print media. That's what MPAN is saying in return. It would seem the issue is not exactly whether or not you remove the toxic parts. It's about regulation in itself. Pages 4 and 26 will give you further details. And just in case you need further clarity onto why the protest of yesterday, New Telegraph has another editorial on its front page. Why Nigeria does not need more media regulatory bills. It's a page 7 read for you. You have a number of other stories right beneath the nameplate. I'm unaware of rival ISWAP governor in Borno, that's according to Zulum. Sage, corruption cause of social upheavals in Africa. And INEC withdraw Honor Chair's nomination, Jega advises Buhari. It's a page 26 read for you. If you flip to the back page, very interesting commentary right there. It says, Loretta as an umpire, Haba, APC. That's from Kasima Figwa. He's writing Stomach Democracy, the title of his column. Let's leave it there for New Telegraph.
Yeah, that ends a look at some of the dailies as well this morning. We will be back in a moment. Do stay with us. All right, then. So we're going to get some, at least perspectives. So you make up your mind if it sheds light or heat on the subject matter, which is about the MPC and MBC amendment bills. We're heading to Abuja for that one. Marpa?
Thank you, Chamberlain. Indeed, I'm sure that if you did see the papers yesterday, their protest was loud and clear, with a lot of the dailies having that very big picture showing information blackout. And yes, you can see it right there. A lot of the dailies did have that on their front page, and that's what the issue is about. The proposed amendment of the NPC and NBC Acts. And we have here with us this morning Mr. Christopher Isiguzo, who's the President, Nigerian Union of Journalists, who was one of the sponsors. That's the Nigerian Union of Journalists, was one of the sponsors of that particular protest sign you saw on the front pages yesterday. And we also have with us Honorable Olusegun Odebomi, who is the Chairman, House Committee on Information, National Orientation, Ethics, and Values. He's a sponsor of the NBC-MPC Amendment Bill. Gentlemen, you're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. First, let me start with you, Mr. Isiguzo. Yesterday, we saw what happened on the front pages. It would seem that the best way to interpret that was that it was a protest. Is that correct?
Yeah, sure. That's our own way of demonstrating our opposition to the planned or the ongoing amendment process of the Nigeria Press Council Act and, of course, the NBC Act.
Who was the protest targeted at?
You know that we are talking about the right of the people to know, right to free expression. And if you go to the amendment bill and look at it critically, you see that some of the provisions contained there seek to criminalize journalism, seek to pigeonhole the media. By that I mean putting the media in the cooler. And if you are going to allow that to stand, when the media's right to free expression is no longer guaranteed, it simply means that democracy is imperiled. And that's why we've not got guns and all that. It is said that the pen is mightier than the sword. That's our own way of saying no to this. And that's why we came up with what you saw yesterday. And as we speak today also, all the major dailies, their editorial is on this too. And that's to tell you that we are very, very serious. We've asked them, we've asked the sponsor of the bill, we've asked the National Assembly, we've asked the government, whoever that is behind the bill, to drop it. By the time we engage properly, we are not saying like one of the things you just showed now, said, we're not saying don't do something about the situation we have, but we feel that you cannot gag free speech, because one of the key ingredients of democratic governance is the right of the people to freely express themselves. It's not just about the media.
So you haven't quite answered my question. What I was asking is, who was the protest targeted at? Was it members of the National Assembly? Was it the Nigerian public? What sort of reactions were you hoping to get from whoever it was you were targeting it at?
Well, simply put, those that are sponsoring the amendment bill. And Shego Odebumi, clear enough, he's here in the studio. And he is the sponsor. And he's probably not alone. The National Assembly, the government, it's very, very clear. The message there is, drop it. We don't want it. Until we properly interface, until we properly engage ourselves. For now, drop it. Let's come together and discuss.
Well, Honorable, you are the sponsor of this bill, and this is not the first time. I mean, perhaps this is the loudest protest we've seen so far, followed up today with editorials about this bill, but it created controversy the moment you decided to introduce the bill. Why did you introduce the bill? Because for a number of people who have gone through your background, you do not exactly, yes, you have, you've been in governance and politics for a long time, they'll grant you that, but you've not exactly been in the media space. So what exactly prompted this bill?
Well, thank you very much. And I want to appreciate this privilege. Let me go straight to the point. My intention is not to gang the press. And unless everybody or the practitioner can say all is well in the industry, to the best of my knowledge, I know all is not well. I'm not talking about you at the top, or those of you who are privileged to be working in a very good media house like Channel. But I know there are some who are just, which their voice are unable to be coming out. All is not well. I know that one is sure. Then apart from that, I told my colleagues, the critical stakeholders who care to listen to me, that I have the privilege of serving in this committee in the last assembly, especially about the press council. I know that all is not well with the agency. It's an agency of government. And before you can have an agency, you are expecting something to be given back to the society. But up to now, nothing has been given, or nothing has been coming out from the agency because of, I cannot say precisely that what might be the problem. Is it the leadership? Is it the structure? Whatever that the problem. But I know that National Assembly has the power to look into the law, the existing acts. This act we are talking about is over 40 years. It has been existing for almost 30, 40 years. Had it been somebody somewhere have plan of amending that law, maybe in the last 20 years, nobody will be talking about it right now. But go and check the existing act and tell me whether all is friendly with what we are talking about. But the best process all over the world is to take it to the table. I'm just using the privilege I have to bring it to the table for all the critical stakeholders to come. Whatever you think it is not good for you in the proposed bill, you have the privilege. My personal idea cannot make a law. Even when we pass through the public hearing, we will still take it to the floor. Clause by clause, all my colleagues there will have their independent mind to take decision on it.
Honorable, what I'm asking is, what ills precisely, because, you know, amendments don't just come up.
Yeah.
What ills precisely were you seeking to cure when you proposed an amendment to the bill?
That's what I've been saying. I said...
You haven't quite pointed out anything in specific.
Specific as the act, the existing act. I said the existing act is Have you ever checked the existing act? Have you ever had the privilege of checking the existing?
What problems did you have?
I said the existing act is not friendly at all. And the agency has not been performing their duty due to one problem or the other. But the best way is to look into the structure of the agency so that they can give the best for the country.
Now, the question I'm asking is, so as a result of the agency not performing its work, right, which is what you say it has been happening,
as is part of
how has it been affecting the media space, and which you think that by amending the act, it will cure, you know?
No, there are a lot. There are a lot of reasons. But I don't know whether you agree with me. There are a lot of quackery even in the system of the journalism. There are a lot of you are professional. But I'm aware that there are a lot of people out there that they are not non-professional people. They just pick their pens and do whatever they want about the people. But what we are saying, if you go through the amendment, I'm proposing a code that you critical stakeholders, you come together, come up with a code that will be guiding your system. Don't wait until the government will say we want to regulate you. Come up with a code within yourself. And if there's anybody, personally to me, if anybody write anything against me that I'm not satisfied with, then I can call on your body or write a petition to you. Report whoever do something wrong to me, report to you. Then you will take it up. I'm not saying the government should be regulating you. Don't wait until that. But I'm sure that if care is not taken, if you don't rise up to do that right now, in the next few years, something will happen. But why not take it up right now and do the right thing?
The complaints which you saw, the ills which you saw, did they come from amongst pressmen? Did you consult with them? Did they come to you to say, Honorable, this is the problems we're having, and we would like you to, use your privilege to help correct these ills?
Yes, being the chairman of that committee, a lot of people have been engaging with me. But I did not consult with any stakeholders before I came up with the amendment bill. Even I did not consult with the government. The Minister of Information gets to know about this about, I think, 4 or 5 days to the public hearing. The public hearing is the platform for consultation. It's already laid down in the rules. And the critical stakeholder will come together. Any area you think it is not okay with you, you write your memorandum and submit it. Then we come together to have a clean bill that will be guiding the system.
Mr. Izuguzo, let me come back to you. We have seen a lot of editorials on the front pages this morning, a lot of them very detailed in their opposition to this amendment and why they're opposed to it. Look at how it's captured, why Nigeria does not need more media regulatory bills. And Daily Trust has this, no to anti-media bills. I think The Guardian said something to the effect, who is afraid of the free press? These are questions that have been, asked by the press this morning. I don't know if you have taken a look at some of the editorials. But there's also the other side of this. There's people who ask, who is afraid of regulation? Is the media space afraid of being regulated?
Well, thank you very much. I'm so happy that the Honorable has just told us that he didn't consult with any of the stakeholders. I know that in the business of lawmaking, before you go to the floor of the National Assembly to begin to advance a particular cause, you must first of all interface with your constituents. That's why they have sent you there. You go to them, you know what their needs are, you take those needs of theirs to the National Assembly, and you come up with legislation that properly captures the needs of your people. Now you are coming up with a bill which will have a direct impact. It would make direct impact on the practice of journalism, on media practice, and you didn't deem it necessary to interface with the stakeholders. That in itself is a complete failure on the part of the legislator. Number two, you're talking about you have issues, journalists, they do this. We have so many legislations. We have laws. We have the law on libel. We have law on sedition. We have even though we don't accept that, the Cybercrime Act of 2015, if a journalist has done something, you feel that you're not comfortable with it, there are existing laws on how to take care of those issues. Now, going straight to your question of who is afraid of regulation. Nobody's afraid of regulation. But any regulation that is tainted with obvious bias, because you are coming to do something that you feel would affect the industry. You took it up on your own. Until you got to public hearing, we didn't even know about it. I don't think that is the proper way to do things. We have said it that we are ready. All of us are ready. But we are not going to hand over that power to regulate the industry to the lawmaker. It's very, very clear. If you go to other climes, even very close to us here in Ghana, they have their own system, the way they operate. You allow the stakeholders, you allow the professionals, you allow the practitioners to regulate themselves. I said this the last time I was here. You allow us to regulate ourselves. If you have your ideas, if you are so clear, sincere with what you have in mind, simple thing you would have done, even before putting up those together. You convene a meeting of stakeholders. Okay, look at my worries. Look at what I have in mind. How do we go about this? You don't ambush us, because what the lawmaker did, or what the National Assembly did, was to ambush us, to bring us to the public glare. Okay, look at what I have. Everybody is there. That's not an engagement. You understand? You would have consulted with the stakeholder. Let's sit together and discuss it. At the end of the day, when the bill comes out, all of us are together in it. But you already brought the bill to the public sphere, to the public. You now want us to come and discuss. What do you want us to discuss? And that's why we said, we are not accepting it the way it is. Drop it, we can now start discussing. We are not afraid of regulation. We are very, very much available. We're not saying this. Yes, we are concerned about the goings on in the system. We may not be so comfortable with some developments in the media space. Yes, but we cannot just throw the baby and the bathwater. We must discuss about it.
Let me quickly flip this to Lagos now, because I know that my colleagues have questions for you, gentlemen.
Okay, well, Honorable Debomi, well, listening to at least the perspective you've given so far, you say something is wrong in the media space, but from what we heard you say, the only issue you seem to have pointed out is either wrong reportage or quackery, as it were, and already there are laws that already cover those areas wherein if any wrong information or sedition or libel, those kind of things are already provided for in the law. So if that is your major concern, why come up with this law when the laws already provide for that?
Well, thank you very much. Before I answer that question, let me quickly respond to this. Look, the matter of consultation with my constituency is paramount, and no doubt about it. But the aspect we are talking about is the process of the lawmaking. There's a laid down rule for the process of the law. At the stage of the first reading, you just mention it in the floor. I'm surprised that if the president of the AUJ cannot be saying he's even aware of this, that means you are not monitoring what is going on the floor.
This bill in itself.
Hold on, please.
We are now members of your constituency.
That is not the procedure, please. I gave you the privilege to make your point. What I'm saying is that the consultation aspect of the law-making process is tabled at the public hearing. And it's all over the world. That is the process. If I consulted with the executive before bringing up this bill, then definitely people will be alleging me that I'm taking a side. But this is the laid down rules for consultation. Now, going back to your question, yeah, that is, I just mentioned that one alone. It's not the alone reason why I came up with the law. And I want you to agree with me that this is an existing act. So how do we amend the existing act? And if you go through my proposal, I talk about the structure, that who will be handling day-to-day activities. Then there should be a board who also will be working together with the executive secretary. These are my proposals in the bill. So for them to have a good structure, and the Nigeria Press Council is already existing. Whether the amendment will give the power to the practitioner to be regulating themselves, I'm not afraid of that. And I'm not saying it can't happen. But if that is your thinking, bring it to the table. Give us the memorandum about it. It is not about the going to the pages of paper. The law cannot make in the pages of paper. There's a process. So we are at the stage of expecting whatever their position, whatever the things is not good for them the practitioner in the bill. They should point it out. And mind you, we are in the system of a lot of technologies are coming to the system that is not recognized by the existing act, even both at NBC and NPC. We are working on the digital switchover with the NBC. If you remember, there's another committee in the National Assembly, in the 8th Assembly, yes, in the 8th Assembly. And part of their recommendation is that the National Assembly should provide a legal framework for the digital switchover. These are the things we are working upon. And it's stable for every critical stakeholders to come up with their own submission about it.
All right, a couple of things.
Everybody must agree because it's going to be guiding us.
A number of things have come up from your submissions, but about that consultation bit, let me just pick up on this, because you say that is the process of consultation when it gets to the floor. But we've all watched and seen that that is not the same process that the National Assembly followed when it was with the PIB. Is that right?
No, that is the same process. All the consultation was after the public hearing, people are now consulting, having a meeting together. That is the process. After all the consultation, then you have the clean bill that will now lay back to the National Assembly for third reading.
Oh, no, but there were several meetings with stakeholders and professionals in that industry beyond the National Assembly.
Yes.
Members of the Assembly
after
called.
The public hearing.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I'm saying the same thing with you. What I'm saying is that all those meetings is after the public hearing, and you will now be engaging the critical stakeholders. And there's no limited time for that. You can have that for even a year for consultations. Then after you now have come up with a clean bill that will be agreed by the majority, you cannot have everybody on it. But if the majority now agree with it, then you proceed to lay it to the floor. And by you subject the approval to the members of the National Assembly to approve the clause by clause.
Okay, so now you say that something is not right in the media space. And then you come up with the bill, and then you
even confirm that now?
No, I'm quoting you. You were the one who said, from what you saw...
the president confirmed that to you right now.
All right, but when you then have an issue with an existing law and you want to amend, I thought the natural thing was to have said, well, we've seen something wrong here. We've approached the people who are practitioners in the industry to see how do we correct this. But if they're not coming up with any answer, then we've got no choice than to come up with this bill. But they're saying that, look, there's nothing wrong in identifying and then trying to improve the profession or the practice. They are quarreling with the process. But you say that, no, you are sticking with your guns. That then makes people wonder, isn't there much more to this than what you say you just want to correct?
No. It's only maybe you don't have the privilege of engaging in all this while. We have been on this matter for a while. And our conclusion is that, personally, I'm suspending the process for more consultations. That is what I said last week. But, you know, what I'm saying is the journalists or the AUJ cannot even gang the process of the National Assembly by saying, no, you must drop it. That is not the way. That is not the way of doing things.
If I get you correctly, you're saying that this bill has been suspended for now.
Yeah, I said we have suspended the process for more consultation to happen on it. They demanded for a lot of time. I said, no problem. I'm giving you. Even if you spend 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks,
1 year,
weeks,
2 years.
So for more consultation, there are critical stakeholders in it. And many people have been submitting their memorandums to the National Assembly.
Okay, if we could just talk about the...
within the industry.
Okay, just before we go to break in about 2-3 minutes, I want us to talk about the history of this bill. Some call it a decree that was eventually made into a bill. Tell us the history of the MPC, because the matter is in court, as I'm aware of, at least it's at the Supreme Court now, waiting to be ruled upon. Where did this bill, original bill that you're trying to amend, where did it emanate from?
I told you now, it's existing act. The act is with us in the National Assembly. You have access to it. It's an existing act. So, and if you go through my own proposal, you will see that even the major one is the section 2 of the bill.
Okay.
And some review of some fine. Yeah.
Right. Well, ideally, I shouldn't do this, but let me answer my question. So this bill was originally, or the act which you're trying to amend, was originally a decree during the military era, and over time, the NPO at that time had issues with it. The matter was taken to court. There was a court ruling on it. So originally, what you're trying to amend, the press sees it as even gagging the press. Now you're amending it and adding more, sections to it that seems to be gagging it the more. I don't know if you get the context I mean right now. So how about even resolve the original act that is contentious before even adding these amendments?
I disagree with that. If you check my proposal, I did not add more to what is existing. I want to put what is existing on the table of every critical stakeholders so that we can expunge and add value to MPC. What I'm seeing behind is very far.
Honorable Adebumi,
the terrorism of the evil journalists should be
pardon me, you said you didn't add to it. So what is this amendment about? What are you amending then if you didn't add to it? I'm going to read some sections, but just to be clear, that's what you said.
Okay.
No, go ahead. Why amend when you say you didn't add? What's this amendment about then?
I said there are a lot of questions that yet to be answered. There are a lot of things for the Nigeria Press Council to deliver to Nigerians that they cannot, because of either the structure of the way it was structured, maybe the critical stakeholders are not comfortable with it, and the only body that can call this to amend it is the National Assembly, which I'm giving myself for the service to do.
Right. So,
call on the critical stakeholders.
I did say we'll take a break in about 2-3 minutes.
Why can't we have a clean bid? That
2-3 minutes is now, pardon me. So we'll go to break. There's still a lot of questions not answered really, because you're amending this, but you say you're not adding anything to it. And there are sections which have been imputed into the amendment which you're working on. So we'll go to break, and when we return, we'll talk more on this. Please stay with us. Honorable Olusegun Odemobi is the Chairman, House Committee on Information, National Orientation, Ethics and Values, is a sponsor of the NBC-NPC Amendment Bill. And also we have Mr. Christopher Ezeguzo, the President of the NUJ, both of them still with us in our Abuja studio discussing this big issue. And Honorable Odemobi, just before I take it back to Mr. Ezeguzo, in fact, let me do that right now, and of course we'll come back to you just to get his response to some of the issues raised before the break about the history of the MPC Act, which is currently being amended, and the issues that the NPO and practitioners had with it, that they had to now take it to court, and now it's at the Supreme Court level. So, Mr. Ezeguzo, if you could just give us that background before I take it back to the Honorable.
Well, once more, thank you very much. But before I respond to that, I want to quickly respond to what Ben Kalu said, the spokesman of the House of Representatives. when he was talking about regulation is the way to go. Well, like I said earlier on, we are not averse to being regulated or regulation. Nobody is supposed to it. But what we're saying is that the process must be clearly spelled out, made very clear to every stakeholder. And that's exactly our position on that. You also have made reference to the matter before the Supreme Court, which is known to the sponsor of the MPC, MBC amendment bills. We won the case at the court of first instance. Of course, the government won at the appeal court, and now the matter is before the apex court. Even during the public hearing, where we made some representations, myself, I was there, the MPAN, and of course the Guild of Editors, they were equally represented. We did tell the lawmakers that this matter is before the Supreme Court, and that going ahead with this process is more like sub judice, but he disagreed with us. I think that what they could not get from the judiciary, they want to get from the legislature. That's a very clear thing. And we said, no, we don't accept that. And of course, he did say that the judiciary is not going to stop them from going ahead with their legislative activities or functions. You defined it. The Nigerian Press Organization, we made it clear that the Nigerian Press Council, as presently constituted, is not in tandem with the spirit and letters of free press. And that's why we have clearly opposed activities of MPC. As we speak, the MPO has not made any presentations to the board of MPC, and that's why nothing is working. He has consistently made reference to an existing act. That act, has it worked? The answer is no, because the critical stakeholders, as variously described us, we have not accepted it the way it is, and that's why we said that we are not comfortable with the ambush, because if he has shown lots of sincerity in the procedure he has adopted, maybe from the outset, engage the critical stakeholders, and we'll be on the same page. There wouldn't have been this back and forth issue of suspending the process and maybe coming back and all that. You've already brought us to the public sphere. And that's why we are making our own case before the public. The MPAN and, of course, the president of MPO spoke earlier. We are not opposed to these things, but procedurally, let's do the right thing. If we have found faults with the existing act and there is need to come up with a law that will be acceptable to all, then we would have all been engaged, interfaced with, consulted, and we'll be on the same page with it. But they didn't do that. Ben Kalu, the spokesman of the House of Representatives, also talked about the issue of fake news to stop journalists from overheating the polity with stories that are unverified and all that. I said earlier on, we have existing laws to tackle such issues. We have the laws on libel. We have the laws on sedition. We have the criminal and penal codes. If you go there, they also attend to some of these issues. In 2015, the legislature came up with the Cybercrime Act, which has also substantially attended to these issues. So if we already have existing laws, we don't need to be in a haste to amend the Nigerian Press Council. Let the stakeholders come up together so that we don't also end up coming up with a law that is not functional. Nobody can continue to celebrate that we have, okay, during my time in the National Assembly, I have been able to initiate 100 laws, and at the end of the day, none of the laws is functional. Nobody is operating them. Then it makes no sense of the entire process. That's why we said, let's come together. At the end of the day, if we come up with this bill together and it works, and all of us agree to it, it becomes functional, the credit still goes to him. And all the people that are with him in the process. Let us come together, suspend the entire system, the law, then we have something that works for us. That's exactly what we're saying. We are not averse to being regulated. Nobody is opposed to it. Do
you think the press perhaps waited a little too long? Because having looked at all of these issues, both regarding the print and the broadcast media, even the online version, that there really was a need to address those concerns that you raised. For instance, if the press had come together and said, look, this is our own proposition of how we think this should be done in line with global best practices, rather than maybe just wait to be ambushed, as you say. If the press had done that, do you think we would have been where we are today?
Well, initially, we came up with the ombudsman strategy, which, of course, we believe didn't really turn out the way we wanted it. As we speak, the stakeholders, the NGE, NUJ, MPAN, we're coming up, we have committees in place that are already designing something that will work for all of us. Like you said, allow the professionals to regulate themselves. So we are not just leaving it vague. We are not just leaving it dead, no. We have committees in place that have been set up, and we're already designing something. So when we are asking them to not to go ahead with what they have introduced, it's not like we're keeping quiet. You know, what we've done yesterday and what we've done today, what we're going to still be doing tomorrow and the weeks to come, they're already designed. So we are coming up with something, you know. By the end of the day, you are likely going to have something like Press Complaints Commission. You are going to have something made up of a team of seasoned professionals, you know, that will be able to attend to some of these issues that is raising worries, his concerns in the media and all that. Besides, the bulk of the problems we have today in this country are not just more with the media. We have a whole lot of array of issues that we should address. You know, this is just one out of many. So why are we in a haste to parcel the media and put it in a pigeonhole? That is not going to solve any problem for us. We are going to stop the people from expressing themselves, speaking their minds, which is a hallmark of democratic governance. That's what we are saying. It's not just about us. It's about the Nigerian populace. Allow us to regulate ourselves. Allow us to discipline ourselves. If there are issues, we know how to handle them. That is it.
Well, Mr. Isiguzo, I'm just wondering why, I mean, by way of following up on the question that Chamberlain asked, because I'm pretty sure that there are several other issues that are not going to be addressed until such a thing as is happening now happens. For instance, we have had quite a number of media practitioners, pressmen, journalists like yourself in the National Assembly, you know, even a former NUJ president has been in the Senate, and a good number of them in the House of Representatives as well. I'm wondering why it took this long, and will it take this long going further? Because if that kind of conversation had been on, you talked about the fact that the press didn't accept the NPC Act, but the NPC Act was binding on the media. So if any action had been taken on that score, the media would have been bound by it because it is a question of law. I'm wondering what the issues were that made it to stay this long, and how do we ensure this doesn't happen again?
Well, I think we've got to make progress. Like I said, we have already started the process of attending to some of these issues as we've been talking about the fake news. We talked about the new developments in the media, the social media, which nobody envisaged in the past. We are all going to bring this together in our new, the efforts we are making now, you know. So, but if we are going to, you know, ambush us this way, it's going to be a huge challenge. Granted, some of the steps taken in the past may not have been so clear before the public. But I must tell you that if you go to NUJ, journalists that have exhibited some unethical behaviors, rather, you know, they have been sanctioned. It's not like we have kept quiet. If you go to some media houses as we speak, there are journalists that have been suspended and their salaries stopped because of ethical misbehaviors. You know, these things are on across media houses, it's not like we need to come and use trumpets to say it everywhere. We have our own internal mechanism, internal strategy of attending to issues with journalists that have gone off the cuff. That's the truth. We have that system. It's not like we need to begin to sing it every now and then. We are not quiet. As we speak, major media houses have disciplined people at the level of NUJ. People have been disciplined, because of their misconducts. We have done that. It's not like we're keeping quiet. The media is up to task in ensuring that we discipline erring members. It's very clear. That's the truth. It's not like the media is not doing something. We are doing a whole lot.
Is that going to include perhaps the conduct of media owners? Because you have journalists who, they don't get paid, the salaries as or when due, the conditions of service, labor laws, adherence to labor laws. Those are part of the issues that practitioners themselves also need to address. Is that going to feature in part of the amendments that we're looking forward to, the self-regulation amendments?
Well, from what we are doing now is all-encompassing. What we are doing now is all-encompassing. And by the time we come up with our templates, you too will be happy with what we've done. Yeah, we are concerned that journalists, most media platforms, they work without pay and all that. Yeah, and in the past, we've also been able to picket media houses. Last 2 weeks, we're almost going to picket one. But before we got to that stage, we needed to also engage them. I led some members of the union to that particular media house. And we sat down and we agreed with them. And they've assured us they are going to, implement some of the decisions we arrived at in that meeting. So some of these things, we don't need to begin to, trumpet them. No, but we are doing something. There are internal ways of attending to some of these important issues without necessarily making noise about them. That's the truth. We are concerned, like you said, people work without pay, some labor laws that are, breached and all that. With what we have put in place, with the new engagement we are doing now, at the level of Nigerian Press Organization, we are taking care of these issues one after the other.
So it might be a good idea sometimes to put that information out there. Otherwise, the press would, everyone, government would think, okay, fake news is a problem and the practitioners are not doing anything about it. That's just on the side. But let me ask Honorable Odebumi. We've talked largely about, the print media because of all of the agitations that you have seen. But then there is also the issue of the NBC amendments. And I'm just wondering, what are those issues that you feel maybe the media are leaving out, that they're not addressing themselves, that are giving you concern, for which reason you said, let's make some amendments?
Thank you very much. Before I go to that, I am happy that I'm vindicated now, that he has agreed that there's a lot of problem in the system that needs to work on. And mind you, we are looking at Nigeria as a space for everyone. National Assembly is the voice for the voiceless, who can consult us under it. And we are the person to make it loud. What I'm trying to say is that we are not rushing into making any law, but we identified as a problem. And we are recommending in that bill, if you go through it, I'm recommending a code that will be put together by the critical stakeholders. So if anybody wants to report, they will report to you for you to work on it. And it is better for you to have it now. If you wait for some years to come, there will be no option for the government to come up with it. Because we cannot allow, they say something that they cannot allow the National Assembly to regulate them. No.
In this issue that you just mentioned now, Honorable, just 1 second, on that matter that you just raised now, the press code, you are saying that code in the recommendation you are making, that it should be approved by the minister. What if the minister is not a practitioner?
Yes, that is my proposal, but my proposal is not banned.
But why was it proposed in the first
You can come up with any other idea.
Why was it proposed in the first place? What was the intention?
To me, you cannot make a code and approve the code by yourself.
Do you think the same thing? Just 1 second, Honorable, just 1 second. Just 1 second. Do you think that same provision that you are recommending can be applied in the health sector if the Honorable Minister of Health is not a medical practitioner?
I think, try to get what I'm saying. I said it's a proposal. But if you give me the best
let's just imagine that this proposal was also made. Is it possible? Is it possible that a minister who is not a medical practitioner can approve the laws and approve a practicing code for a specialized industry such as health?
Why not? Because he is not the one to put the code together. The code will be put together by the critical stakeholders. How we are saying that, okay, you have put it together, let somebody approve it, that this is acceptable code by everybody. Okay, and if you don't want the minister to approve it, recommend the other. Okay,
Honorable, let's go to the substantive issue. Let's go to the substantive issue.
Whatever you think is the best, then
yes,
we take
just a moment. Let's go to the substantive issue of the NBC Act, the amendments that you are proposing. One of the amendments also says that you are giving a lot more power to the minister over the practitioners. He may not be a practitioner, and consequently may not understand the issues in the industry.
I quite agree with you. I said that is my own proposal, that the minister should do this. Mind you, you can be Minister of Information tomorrow. So it is not for somebody, it's for that office. And if the practitioner said, no, we are not giving this to the minister, recommend somebody else. We can recommend the board, you can recommend National Assembly, but somebody else must approve whatever somebody has done. You cannot be the recommendation and at the same time you be the approval personnel. No, somebody else must be in charge of that. That's what we are saying. Okay. I'm not saying whatever my recommendation is banned.
Honorable.
And the NBC you were talking about.
All right. Please go on.
I said in the 8th Assembly, there's another committee that work on the digital switchover. And part of their recommendation is that the National Assembly should provide a legal framework that will be guiding the process of all this, that will include the digitals into their acts. Because the existing law does not even emphasize that the present situation will come up. All this media, online, everything. So that is what we are working on. And it is not banned. It is a proposal for critical stakeholders to come up and say...
You know, with due respect, the number of people just these proposals that you have put forward, because you have said, oh, my proposals are not binding. If you're not binding, you can bring forward your own. However, the very fact that you know that the way it usually works, that a Minister of Information speaks for a government in power, and then that the press usually has to be independent. You now say that the Minister for Information should approve whatever it is that the press brings forward. I mean, there'll be huge questions of what sort of thinking informed that sort of proposal in the first instance.
Yeah, I agree with you. I can feel the fear.
So you agree
but
that
what I'm saying,
you agree that there was some mischief intended in what you proposed?
No, I said, what's your fear? But what I'm saying is that this is not the minister. The minister will not amend anything. It's you, the critical stakeholder, that will come up with the code.
Honorable, let me read sections of your proposal to you. I mean, so that our public can understand this. You say, with the approval of the minister in charge of information, establish and disseminate a national press code and standards to guide conduct of print media, related media, and media practitioners. In other words, the Minister of Information will approve, establish, and disseminate a national press code. You say the minister is also to approve penalties and fines against violation of the press code by print media houses and practitioners, including revocation of license. You're suggesting that the minister will also be the one to license media houses. So if the minister doesn't like the face of the media house, the minister can withdraw the license of the media house. No. These are some of the things that you're proposing in this amendment.
No.
Is that correct?
No. I think you should understand where I'm coming from. The minister is not amending anything. My proposal. What I'm saying is the critical stakeholders... The
minister is not amending anything. The minister is approving everything.
Then that is my own submission. But give me
what sort of thinking, brought up that sort of proposal in the first instance? If you say that all is not well in the media industry and you are seeking to correct and, change things in the media for the better, how does this sort of proposal change things for the better?
Yeah, thank you very much. That code to be regulating by themselves. The code I'm recommending, that you come up together and come up with the code. That is regulation. But if you come up with the code, somebody else will say, okay, this is what you have agreed. I have that, approve it. And if you don't want the minister to approve it, recommend somebody else.
Can you tell us where it is? Just a moment, Mr. Eziguso. What practice you have followed? Because, as Mr. Eziguso pointed out here, that even in neighboring Ghana, that is not the situation. In the advanced democracies that we copy, that is not the situation. What model would we say that we have followed in this instance to come up with the kind of bills that we have come up that has put all the media houses, there is at least almost all the print media houses are up in arms. They have expressed their displeasure in no uncertain terms with this particular bill. And you still think it's okay?
Why would I say it's not okay? That is my proposal, and I will defend what I put to the table. What I'm saying is that the proposal, what we are saying, the capital, there are investors aspect of the journalism. There are some who have put their investment in it. But the product of the paper is about Nigerians, is about everybody. And we want somebody, their own stakeholders, that they should stand up to regulate whatever fear the Nigerians are having about it. And whatever my proposal, I'm not saying, I said it's not banned. The model you are talking about. Come up with the model you want.
Honorable, I'm looking at the fact that you're the chairman, House Committee on Information, National Orientation. There's a whole national orientation agency that people have been saying, what are they doing, what are they doing? There have been no proposals on that. There's ethics, which you're also the chairman of, I think, ethics, and I'm trying to look at the name of the last part.
Ethics and privileges.
Ethics and privileges. Is it in the House?
No.
Ethics and privileges in the House?
I thought the completion of the...
I'm trying to, yes, ethics and values. Yes, National Information, House Committee on Information, National Orientation, ethics and values. There have been a lot of issues around ethics and values in Nigeria and how to ensure that we entrench back our ethics and, uphold values. There are no concrete bills being proposed in that regard. It is the media.
That is another national question that call for answer. We are working on that too. But the major issue about the NOA is funding. Their law. If there's need for amendment on their law, we will put it on the table.
Mr. Eziguso, let me quickly ask you this. Do you think that this is going to affect the media's idea of balance and fairness? Because the media has already set out its protest in very clear terms. Would you still be willing to take the other side of the argument also in the dailies as well?
Well, I think, first of all, with what you've read to him, which I believe he probably didn't know those details in that proposed amendment bill, I think it's dawned on him that he would have to do the needful, because if we allow what he is recommending, which of course he has not made any reference to any model anyway, what the implication is that before any newspaper goes to bed, whatever you want to dish out tomorrow, you submit it to the Honorable Minister to approve. That's in clear terms. what he's recommending. I believe when he started this process, he didn't know it is going to get to this point. I want to once again publicly tell him that now that you've seen the reality, do the needful, eat the humble pie, and withdraw this obnoxious bill. Well, you asked a question
about balance and fairness.
Well, if we continue with what he's recommending, of course these things disappear. That's the truth. But for us, the media has always, what we're demanding is allow us free operation. Don't gag us. Which means for any media that wants to maintain its credibility and integrity, it must maintain such critical features about balance, about fairness. It must be authoritative. It must be accurate. Any media platform that does not replicate all these features in its activities, that media will not stand the test of time. That's the truth. For them to survive, these things must be reflected in all you churn out to the public. So that's what we, but from what they are now recommending,
Mr. Isiguzo, I'm so sorry, we're totally out of time. We really have to run because we have a commercial break. Mr. Christopher Isiguzo is the President of Nigerian Union of Journalists. Honorable Olusegun Odebumi, Chairman, House Committee on Information, National Orientation, Ethics and Values, and sponsor of the NPC Amendment Bill. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you very much.
We are not gagging the press.
We'll take a break.
And we will not accept the gagging of the press.
People can make up their minds. We'll take a break at this moment and we'll be back shortly. Please stay with us. Well, quite a lot to chew on, yes, because almost all the laws you're looking at have been from the House of Representatives. Of course, some have also been from the Senate, like the Electoral Act and the PIB. The PIB has already passed, and you've seen the uproar in some quarters that have greeted that particular bill. The Electoral Act, there were, talks that there were surreptitious attempts to bring into it things that were not initially there and agreed upon by the Joint Technical Committee of both the House and the Senate. And that's what that meeting is about. So let's quickly take the perspective of Honorable Cedric Ogun, who is a member of the Constitution Review Committee. Honorable, you're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Well, the National Assembly is under some focus, and very soon you'll be going, maybe some people say rightly so, because very soon you'll be going on recess. So it is important that a lot of the things that there are controversies around be brought to the fore. And maybe recess could provide time for people to re-engage with their constituents over, some of this passage of bills and, acts that have just been, well, maybe not acts, yes, because some of them have not been signed into law. But let's quickly take your own thinking around the controversy they brewed around the Electoral Act. We did hear that the Joint Committee had finished their work. In fact, they finished within the time frame which the National Assembly had promised that they were going to deliver the Electoral Act. They had promised the first quarter of this year. It's now since past the first quarter of the year. We're already in the second quarter. Is that so? Well, in fact, we're already in the third quarter, as a matter of fact. And still, this Electoral Act Amendment Bill is yet to sail through. What has been your thinking when you heard the controversy that came up around it?
Well, I was disappointed, and we did engage some of our colleagues who were members.
Disappointed in who?
In the things that came up, the things we heard. Because what's the essence of amending an act? Is to improve on it. So when we heard certain things were now being brought in, so we engaged. I engaged some of my colleagues that were members of the committee to say, was this agreed on? And they said, no, nothing like that. So, like I said, the idea of amending an act is to improve on it, to bring in technology. So, I would think maybe part of the delay, why they have not laid it, is maybe they were trying to make some amendments. Because usually, like what is happening with the PIB now, You go through all the process, public hearing, and then you are going to present the clean copy, and then there are all manner of things coming up to say, look, what you have actually done is not, there are things that need to be corrected. So I thought maybe that was what delayed it. But I think it's going to be laid today, tomorrow, and hopefully we'll do the clause-by-clause consideration this week, and then third reading, and will be sent to the president.
Was it reassuring for you when the Speaker of the House came out to say that there is no such thing as any insertions anywhere?
Yes, it was. But it was never from the House. Whatever happened was in the Senate, because my colleagues in the House said, look, there was nothing like that. You know, they even went back and approached the chairman of the committee to say, look, this is not what we agreed on. If it's been tampered with, we're not going to accept it. And the chairman of the committee assured them that nothing like that happened. So if anything happened at all, definitely not from the House.
But there was a possibility that, that could have happened.
Well, something definitely happened. Well, people can come out and say all manner of things. Certain things definitely happened. But we can't say all on television. You know that. I'm
just wondering now, the PI, much as we can't say all, the people still deserve a right to know.
Of course,
so as much as possible, we will still ask the questions that need to be asked. Let's talk about the PIB. And you are from Edo State.
Yes.
You must have been very interested in the PIB. I'm wondering, when the PIB eventually sailed through, because the House did celebrate.
Yeah.
Correct?
I celebrated.
You did?
Yeah.
So were you surprised then at the reactions that greeted the passage of the PIB?
It's expected, because oil is our mainstay. For me, it's not just that I'm from an oil-producing state. I lived all my life in Delta, Rivers, because I'm also a player in the industry. And one of the first things when I came to the assembly, the 8th assembly, was, so we were in a program in Houston during the Oil Technology Conference, and the MC said to me, we have donated you to the National Assembly to go and pass the PIB. And I was very convinced that I was going to walk around with the leadership to make sure that we have a PIB. So it didn't happen in the 8th Assembly. So, and I was also a member of the PIB ad hoc committee. And I know the effort the leadership of the House put in, and then the executive. So when people come out to raise certain issues, it's okay. It's okay, because, like I said, oil is our mainstay. Anything that's going to affect them, you expect them to come up in arms to say, look, this must be changed. But my appeal is, it's just a bill. And this bill has been in the making for maybe 13 years. So let it come out. We can start amending from the day the president assents to the bill. But it's not such a bad bill. But let's just, because investors are living here. Monies are going elsewhere. And I don't think we are happy with that. Whether we like it or not, is affecting our economy. Some years ago in Warri, people used to say, let them go. Would they come and carry their oil from here? But they left. Shell left. Did they carry the oil? No, they didn't. They divested. Gave to small players, or smaller players that are not necessarily operating from Warri or Delta State. You know, when Shell divested the oil west, and some of the individuals working for them that were living in Warri. But now those individuals are working for these smaller companies elsewhere in Lagos. And what is that doing to the economy of Warri? It's damaged the economy. But I saw a clip on social media when the first flight after COVID got into Warri. Maybe that was probably some couple of weeks ago. And they had this group, traditional group, dancing. I saw some chiefs waiting just to welcome them. It's not as if the governor came in the flight just to welcome them back. Osubi is now back to business. But some years ago, it wasn't like that. For Shell to build that airport, it was plenty trouble. So the point I'm making is, let's not chase investors away. We need a bill that will work for everyone. You know, but in the process of, challenges, throwing up some of these issues, we'll look at it. Now, the bill we have passed, I would not say it's a perfect bill, but it's a good place to start.
Let me throw this to my colleagues. Gentlemen.
Well, thank you, Mokwe. Honorable, permit me to take you back to the Electoral Amendment Bill, and especially the disappointment that you expressed there, those inclusions. As you said, there's also word out there that this is definitely something that may have happened before. If it has happened before, I mean, that such things happened, and even if they were almost incongruous as may be, I'm just wondering, has there ever been an investigation to find out how come this provision that was not approved by us got in? Has there ever been an investigation to trace the source of such a thing? And will there be an investigation into how this one came into this proposition and into public space?
Well, the thing about democracy or politics is all about interest and lobbying. I think somebody brought a bill to have in our constitution lobbying, and people, you know, the way we think in Nigeria, the conclusion was when you say you approve a law for lobbying, which means you have officially approved laws for people to bribe, you know. But in the US, where we copied or were mimicking their system, is allowed. When you are lobbying, you are basically reaching out for certain interests you want taken care of. So I think the process of some of these things coming back, it might seem as if it's coming through the back door, but there are certain interests that would come in that late. I'm not saying it's acceptable. I'm not saying we should close our eyes to it. All it tells us is that we should be alert. It's not enough to just go through a bill and then you present the clean copy and then you go and sleep. You must make sure that the final bill that's presented for clause-by-clause consideration on the floor of the House is also, you go through with a fine toothpick to make sure that nothing has been inserted.
Lobbying that you talked about there, I mean, one would wonder if we understand lobbying in our climb compared to the climb that you referenced earlier. I don't know if, money has to exchange hands when it comes to lobbying. Could you please explain, if you can, the process of lobbying? I mean, the way we understand it is consultation, so to speak, but maybe there's something about lobbying that we don't understand.
Yeah, Ayo, I said that, out there is people reaching out, people making you understand this is the advantage of having this clause included in this bill that you are preparing. They let you know the advantage to the country, to the individual, and now you're looking at, this is present day, but 50 years' time, this is what this clause will do to this bill and to the country. So that's the idea of lobbying, because if they don't come to open your eyes to it, even if you're an expert, you might not see that part of it. So that's the idea of lobbying. But like I said earlier on, in this part of the country or this part of the world, when you say lobbying, it's assumed that somebody is bringing a bag of money to buy your conscience to do the wrong thing.
Honorable.
That's not it. So what I'm saying is, people come in with ideas maybe much later, the tail end of the bill. There's nothing wrong. I think the right thing to do is to say, okay, fine, we have gone so far in this bill, we might not be able to accommodate it right now. When we pass this bill and it's assented to, maybe we can begin to do some amendments. And in the life of a bill, really, or in the life of a nation, some bills have been in existence in this country since the 60s, and they are still fairly okay. So it's not every bill that should come out today and be talking about amendment, because you should allow that bill live its life. What do I mean by that? As now we're talking about the PIB. People have raised issues about certain clauses, included by the other arm, the Senate, that probably were not discussed during when we were putting the bill together. Yeah. When this bill is allowed to go through, in the process of executing it, the process of the bill running, there are certain dynamics that will come into play that maybe we didn't envisage. That definitely will call for an amendment. So when I see people are in a hurry to say it didn't cover, how can a bill cover your entire life or all your thoughts? We are a nation. So in the next 50 years, the things you didn't envisage now might begin to come into play. And the bill probably will take care of it, or might not envisage that. So we should not expect everything we think or we want to be in a particular bill. It's not possible.
Well,
Nothing is perfect in this world. The only being that's perfect is God.
Well, about the PI bill, just going back and forth on both, actually, you know, how concerned should people be, or stakeholders particularly, when concerning that section 317, subsection 2, paragraphs, subsection 8, paragraphs 2 and 3, concerning licensing, importation of petroleum products, where they think that, look, from what they see here, there might be danger in terms of allowing a particular company to import all of those petroleum products, because given that it's a volume business, who knows, that they think that there just might be a challenge in the days ahead. Should that be a source of concern?
Definitely, it should be. Definitely. But the challenge again with that, well, is in the Senate version of the bill. It was never discussed. What was discussed in the making of the bill was that the government, NNPC, will be the last buyer of last resort in the event that we have challenges in the future. And it was said that the government, the Nigerian government, will tell NNPC to bring in products if we have challenges in the future. You know, that was all that was said. So we didn't discuss this. We don't know how the Senate got that in. But the good thing again about the parliament, that's why you have a conference. So I think they are meeting today. The conference has been set up by the National Assembly. They are meeting today. They're going to look at all that. If it wasn't there initially, did anybody see a need to bring it in? Was there a stakeholder that felt that the way it was couched previously, it wasn't good enough, and it was brought in and it was not discussed? The conference will look into all that, and whatever is not good enough will be taken out.
So it's not over until it's over.
Exactly.
Well, I hope that that will be sufficient assurance as we move ahead. We would like to see what eventually will happen, because you say, oh, as soon as the president has sent to this particular bill, that we can even start amendment almost immediately. Some people will say that that is hoping for too much, but let us see how things eventually, you know, pound. Meanwhile, just quickly as an aside, the Constitution Review Committee, where is your work at right now?
Well, we met yesterday, and hopefully we are not going on recess. The committee members are not going on recess on that. We're going to work all through the holiday, and hopefully we should lay the report first week of resumption, and maybe by second week we'll take a vote on it.
You're confident that the amendments will be able, some amendments will be able to pass in the Constitution before this assembly is over?
Definitely. We see, there's a consultant that was in the 6th and 7th House, and was telling me most of these amendments, they took care of them and they sent to the president, was not assented to. And I said to him, a whole lot of water has gone under the bridge since then. So there are things that are in this amendment that must be taken care of today. We cannot wait for the next House, the next assembly.
Well, we have to thank you for coming on Sunrise Today this morning. Honorable Sergio Sogun is a member of the Constitution Review Committee. Well, let's take a look at some of your mails already, and they've been pouring in. Look at this one from Victor Owo, talking about the NPC Amendment Bill. He says, when will our legislators sponsor bills that will make it compulsory for the federal government to make jobs available for people? They come out during elections, they eat corn on the streets, they drink pure water, they fry akara. They even drink gari in front of the people. But the moment they go in, they act like one king in the Bible who decided to whip his people with scorpions instead of sticks. Someone once said, one day you're the cock of the walk, next day you're a feather duster. Our legislators are building Frankensteins. The pen is still stronger than the sword. And legislators are Gbada and Babariga. That's from Victor.
Wow. This is from Joseph Inedu about the media bill. He says the problem we have in this country is selfishness. Once we are in the position of authority, we make things to go our way without looking at the consequences in the future. I cite a hidden plan about this bill that is not being talked about. Nigerians shouldn't be taken for granted again and again. God bless Nigeria.
Well, let's take a look at the next one. Of course, on the NPC Amendment Bill. It says, where do we draw the line between free speech and hate speech? If free speech is what we want, then is it all right if my speech will hurt a few people's feelings? If I'm restrained from expressing my opinion, what happened to my freedom of speech? Goes on to say freedom of speech has been enshrined in our Constitution, as have been its limits with institutional laws which are slander, libel, defamation, blasphemy, agitation against a group of people, and illegal threats. The intention of the bill is questionable because the existing laws have enough power to enforce all of the above. That's all
Demola Alalade says, on the same issue, for there to be an amendment to any law or bill, an anomaly must have been identified in that bill, which must have been discussed with critical stakeholders who are impacted by the bill. Yes, there are issues within the media space, but the National Assembly members pushing for the amendments of bills must carry stakeholders along in the process of amending bills.
Well, EBZ says this, the press, journalists, and media houses should also stop playing politics with developmental issues. That's from EBZ.
Dr. Moise Bakar says about the MPC and MBC amendment bill, in my opinion, we're having a clash of ego on our hands. Every professional body is regulated by government. I mean, you can't always be a judge in your own case. The media guys also seem to need the amendments. Solution? Lawmaker to sit with select stakeholders and represent the amendment just to get everyone on the same page.
Didn't Honourable say, I mean, the whole back and forth, or what's the term he used? Consultation happens after the first, second. And
yeah, maybe the next is what? Public hearing.
okay.
Well, maybe what Dr. Bakar is suggesting is, look, make your job easier.
Represent.
Start consulting.
But which bill has been presented without consultation, really? Even if you're consulting with your aides or, I mean, they're consultants, right? But you know what? Let's take this next one from Yinka Jala on the MPC amendment bill, saying, I am surprised at the position of the NUJ president. There's no denying a lot has been written in the media space which have turned out to be untrue. Asking the National Assembly to leave the issue of discipline to the association is like asking the police to refer a thief to his parents for punishment after he's being caught. Besides, if we're already doing that, maybe there wouldn't be, or there wouldn't have been a need for a reform in Kajala there.
Well, Benjamin Jang, his opinion here says, on the same issue, what does the sponsor mean by saying that the practitioners cannot make code of conduct and approve it themselves? Who approved the National Assembly rules? Didn't they make and approve the rules themselves? Now, that's a question.
Well, actually, about that, the previous one, the RG laws, if you write something false, sedition, libel, there are laws that take care of that. So I think it might have been misunderstood if he says that the NGJ president is saying, leave certain things to us. So there's just certain aspects, self-regulation, but I guess those are part of the things that are in contention. Self-regulation is practiced in different parts of the world.
Yeah.
So it's not something new or strange. So just to add that.
Well, it's a fine place to leave it. Very interesting conclusion there. Who approved NAS rules? Didn't they make and approve the rules themselves? It's a very big question and something definitely to mull on. Thank you so much for sending in your contributions. There's so much more that I would love to take, but we're totally out of time. Thank you for being a part of our conversation this morning. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
Well, I'm Kayode Okikelu.
I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful day.
I'm Train Balunso. Goodbye.